Okay.
there to record.
Okay.
Waiting on the media to start. Good afternoon, everyone. My sister Linda and I thank you for joining us here today to celebrate the life of my sister and your mother, your neighbor, your cousin, your friend, and love, Valerie, Harvey, Maguill. My name is Russ Harvey. I'm Val's older brother. Most of my life, I've picked up the phone to hear a cheery, "Hey Russ, it's your little sister," on the other end of the line. The realization, knowing that the message light is out, is only beginning for me. Val was born an all too short 51 years ago here in Southern California, where she lived all her life. Her wish has always been to be laid to rest here, near our parents and our grandparents, overlooking the Pacific and our family's ancestral home of Balboa Island. 100 years ago, in high school, our grandparents, John and Ruth Rodriguez, used to camp here over Balboa. Our parents met here when they were 16. It only seems fitting that they all rest here. Val loved many things in her life. She loved her family, near and far. She loves her sons, Andrew and Patrick, who face a long life without her guidance and company. She lost her father when she was 5. Growing up without a parent was something she was torn by. And leaving any children without a mother is something she would wish on no one. She loved her fiancé, Owen, who waited patiently and so long. And she loved her parents, Dee and Gary, who she missed deeply and daily. Val loved horses and roses. As a toddler, we found her patting a huge horse's belly by standing underneath, patting upwards. Val was fearless that way. She kept horses on her windowsill as a child. And somehow, as time went on, we found ourselves with horses in the backyard and in the kitchen. Probably saw her. One of the first things she did when she moved to Gardner's Park was put roses in her yard. The first she ever had of her own. We can't thank Gordon and Lynette enough for everything they did for Valerie. But I can thank them for giving her space for roses. Val was an October baby, and her affinity for all things Halloween, say spiders, guided her taste and beliefs all her life. Earth, air, fire, and water were more to her taste than vestments, but she always believed in the beyond, and that something of us remains. She will be happy to see us all here today. If she visits you, she's just dropping by to say hello. She's like that. It's part of her wicked sense of humor. Halloween did have an unfortunate effect on her taste in furnishings, in that she frequently had to be restrained. Thanks, Owen. Really appreciate the help. Valerie always wanted to be older than her years. Linda, you'll agree with me that many of our teenage years were spent trying to keep her from taking over any group she was not included in. As that news of Val's passing made its way around, I got a lot of messages from old friends asking, "Do you remember?" Most of them remembering her 12 going on 20, "Don't you dare leave me out" attitude. It's attitude. Val had attitude in abundance. It's what fueled her years in Hollywood with the camera. It's what fueled her drive to document rock and roll, document her friends, document the bands she hung out with. Human drama for her was more than a band, it was a personality trait. But we have those photos. We have the photos, we have the album covers, we have those memories of those years. We have the people that she knew from those years. But Valerie lived a lot of years in her too short life. And those years took a toll on her health, and she carried a great deal of pain from that. And today we can be grateful that pain is eased. A great many people, and a lot of you are here today, and a lot of people wish they were here today, helped her through all that. And all her neighbors, all the people from her community, from the park, thank you for helping her. She talked about you a lot. I know she really, really was glad for all of you and all of her. And there were Val's closest friends, the three amigas, Christine, Diane, Corinne. She carried you in your heart from when she was young, and you've been there for her through everything, through the good, the bad, the up, the down, everything that she was because of you. You were part of her. Thank you. All the good. That's what we take with us from Valerie. Whether she was up, down, or sideways, there was always another Rose, and never another Valerie. So, hey Russ, it's your little sister. And my sister Linda wants to say a few words. I could go on and have to know too. I think that's enough. I'll be back.
Thank you for. Okay. Wow. I'm a teacher. I'm used to talking all day, and I'm not used to having a microphone right there. So again, thank you for coming. And unlike my brother, who's very organized and detailed, there's a quote I heard that I just loved, and I don't have the exact citation of it, so it's an indirect quote to my friends. That's the lesson. We are the curators of the museum of our family's memories, and it's something like that. But I just love that, how those of us who are left, it's our responsibility to tell those stories and share those stories with the people who are younger. I love Lee Price. I love when you tell us stories, you know, from the past, and other people, Patty, who's known my mom since we first moved to Tustin in 1966, just their perspective, and I just love that. So that's kind of where I am today. Because Valerie was 4.5 years younger, most of my memories are from when she was younger. And I just have something about, you can't talk about my sister without also talking about my mom, because they were so close and tight. And starting Valerie's life, one of the quotes my mom always said, Valerie was a perfect baby until she learned to walk. And then she was everywhere all the time. And when we were at Balboa, when she was a toddler, they had to put a sign on her back that said, "My name is Valerie, I live at 226 Pearl," because she would get away and she'd go wherever, and people would return her. "This is your child," and bring her back. That was one of the really good stories. And there was a lovely time we were on a family vacation. We were staying at the St. Francis Hotel in San Francisco. And Russ, it was 2 rooms adjoining. And Russ and I were watching TV, and Valerie was there, and our parents said, "Oh, we're going to go out. Would you guys keep an eye on Valerie?" Happened all the time. Okay, because we were just enough older that, you know, 7- and 8-year-olds could keep track of her. But anyway, so they went somewhere, and they came back, and they said, "Where's Valerie?" And we said, "Well, she's in the other room," because they were just adjoining hotel rooms. And they said, "No, she's not." So it was a big drama, big high-rise, you know, hotel, big fancy hotel in San Francisco, and everybody was looking for And turns out she had walked out of the hotel room on whatever floor it was on, gone to the elevator, taken the elevator downstairs, gone to the little gift shop, tried to buy some candy, but she had no money. And she was 2 at the time. Okay, she was 2. And they wouldn't sell her anything, and she got in the elevator and she came back, and without even knowing numbers, she found her way back into the hotel room herself. So it was that beautiful sense of direction that my sister had that I was not born with. So these are the stories that I love, and it's so weird having you sit behind me. Every time we went shopping at a mall, Valerie went off. We didn't lose her. She had a plan of where she was going, and she would go. So this would be Dee, okay, you stay here. You go up that elevator. I'll go down the main place, which was Fashion Square at the time. So it was always like, where's Valerie? So we never figured out in those days you'd tether people tether their kids, but like it was just a given that if we went to the mall, we'd be hunting for her and finding her eventually. And I'll just add a little more to my brother's story. When we moved into the house in Tustin, it was 8 acres of avocado trees, and there was a horse corral with a couple of horses in it, like 2 lots over. And again, my grandmother was watching us, and Valerie got out, and again, she was like 2. And she crawled into the corral, and yeah, she was up underneath the horse, patting the belly, and we couldn't figure out how to get her out of the corral. So my grandmother had a cookie. She's like, Valerie, here's a cookie. Okay. And then we got it. She didn't feel any fear. She was born fearless, and her friends who played with her through all those, like 14 to 30 age years know that she was fearless all through Hollywood and all the things that she did. Something that I don't have either of those, no sense of direction and no fearless, but we do have this Harvey talking thing that we tend to talk a lot. And my sister could talk more than anybody. And she could talk to anyone, somebody she had never met before, somebody she hadn't seen. Doesn't matter whether you were a CEO or a 2-year-old, she just was really, really friendly and talkative. And I know the people who live in Garner's Park know that Valerie knew everybody and everything that was going on. Let's see, and just like Russ said, see, there you are behind me. The phone calls. I don't talk on the phone. I'm terrible. I never return phone calls. I'm bad. But my sister was great on the phone, and I know she kept in contact with her close friends all the time because everybody's just a phone call away. And as most people, you don't use your house phone very often anymore, and everybody's on their cells. And so when our house phone would ring, it would either be a telemarketer or Valerie. And Valerie always had great things. And the phone will ring now, like, is it Valerie? No, and I remember Valerie. But, it's tucked like a pirate day. Have a good day, bye. She just hang up. So there's no one to call us and tell us it's talk like a pirate day anymore. And we just enjoyed that, and that was one of the things. that I did look through Dee's photograph album, and Valerie got an award at 6th grade's outdoor science camp for talking nonstop for an entire week. It's not me, it was her. Valerie was going through a down period last fall, and I have my mom's photograph albums, I have my photograph albums, and I kind of hold them like this. And I don't have pictures, and so I went through all my mom's photograph albums, and I made an album of Valerie from birth to age 16. And so I went through all the pictures of her, and from some of them were in there, and some of them are in the book. And so for Christmas, I gave her an album of just her childhood. And one thing that I noticed in looking for pictures of Valerie through that period of time, and then through this period of time, helping Owen with the slideshow, is there's almost no pictures of Valerie, just Valerie. Because they're all head-to-head, smiling. The best picture she is holding, cuddling, clinging to. There's I don't know if it's in that one wonderful picture of her and Corinne at Balboa. They're hugging, head-to-head. And part of her personality was that loving, holding, connecting with people. And it's just one of those things that was made more clear to me as I went through all the pictures of her. from her childhood. She just has almost no pictures of her alone. Valerie loved animals, as Russell said. Frosty the pony, Vinegar, Frosty used to get out, we called him Houdini. Nothing could be better for a little girl than to have horses in your backyard. She was lucky enough to take her horse in a horse trailer to summer camp. So she went to horseback riding camp up in the Westlake and got to take her horse with her. That was something, again, that my mom and my sister shared along with wherever Lisa is. So the horseback riding part of the family. And I hate horses. I can't even, they're big, they scare me, they would step on my toe and hurt me. I absolutely hated the horse trailer coming home because somebody had to shovel out the horse trailer. I wanted nothing to do with it. But for my mom and my sister, it was a connection, and I think you're born loving horses. I don't know why, I didn't get that gene, but my sister loved cats immensely. She loved dogs, but horses were her favorite thing. And I do have to say, she loved her kids. And she was so happy to be a mom, and I'm really sorry that she's gone, and they're not going to get to have her. I mean, I was a lot older when my mom died, and it was really hard for me. So I can't imagine for Andrew and for Patrick how hard it will be. But I just have to say, remember the stories, remember the times, tell the stories, talk about it. I think the more you celebrate all those little things that happen in your life together, that it makes them there with you, in your heart, in your mind, and in the room. So I think Valerie's here somewhere. So anyway, thank you for coming.
Thinking about my time with Valerie, there are two forces that shape our lives: change and continuity. Change is usually recognizable as it happens, and it's disturbing because it has both positive and negative aspects. Change desired or undesired, expected or unexpected. Continuity shows itself more in the negation of change. And like quantum physics, is changed by the examination of it. And it can only truly be recognized at a distance. Valerie and I got together sometime in 1989. Although seemingly a surprise to me, Valerie had her eye on me for quite some time, and our initial hookup had been carefully planned. We met through mutual friends under the pretense of watching horror movies. And that in itself should have been a tip-off. Horror movies were integral to Valerie's life, but I didn't have the stomach for them at all. As a matter of fact, one of her favorite stories was when her and Cliff Cadaver dragged me to see Pumpkinhead. There was a scene that scared me so bad, I leaped out of my seat to the point where they could see the chair underneath me. I should have known what the future held with Valerie when the first night I stayed over at her house in her apartment in Hollywood. Her beloved cat, Dudley, felt so threatened by my presence and felt the need to mark his territory all over my clothes. This is a big change for both Dudley and myself. Unexpected for me, undesired for Dudley. Needless to say, a period of adjustment ensued. At some point early on, I bought Valerie black leather rose. It seemed to symbolize what we were at the time. As time went on, Valerie felt both confidence in who we were as a couple, and yet a nagging doubt that we were too complacent in our relationship, that we needed change. She felt we needed to get married. I, on the other hand, wasn't ready for marriage. I was still living at home. I just started working. I didn't want that kind of change. The pressures of the biological clock were too great, and we broke up. Since that time, I've always felt that the hardest trial a relationship can endure was the wedding reception. Those of you who may know the backstory. Fast forward 18 years. Valerie and James moved out of her mom's house in Tustin and into Gardner's Park. And they had two beautiful sons, Andrew and Patrick. I, on the other hand, was living in a kind of stasis. My folks had died, and I took over the house that I grew up in. Apart from cutting my hair in 1998, not much had changed. Same car, unmarried, a bachelor's life. Out in the real world, technology had developed by leaps and bounds. Cell phones, which used to be high-ticket, exotic items, had come down in price to the point where most people had them. In fact, many people only had a cell phone, gave up their landlines because they didn't offer mobility and freedom that cell phones did. I was not one of those people. I always had a fear that someone from my past, family members, old friends, would someday need to get a hold of me. And if I gave up the landline, they would be able to. So for the benefit of any as yet unknown associates and hordes of telemarketers, I kept the original Maguill rotary dial kitchen phone, paying a fortune to maintain continuity of the past. One afternoon in 2008, while watching TV, over-the-air TV, via the aerial attached to the chimney, the phone rang. It was Valerie, calling the only number she had for me, the house phone. She was going through a rough patch, and she needed a shoulder to cry. There have been a lot of changes in her life recently. None of them were expected or desired. In spite of the passage of time, she seemed like Valerie I knew from the days gone by. And the sudden change of having her back in my life felt not so much different, but familiar. Once, visiting her old home at 3:30, I saw sitting in a vase by the bathtub the single black leather rose. with her so many years before. Surprised, I asked her, "You kept that after all this time?" And with only the certainty that Valerie could muster, she said, "Of course." Change had become continuity. Managing change can be uncertain and scary. Continuity is comforting and familiar. So Valerie wasn't ready to break with the past just yet and wanted to give her marriage another shot. So I took a step back, offering moral support in lieu of physical support. Then Dee passed. There is a change so profound. It causes us to re-examine our place in the universe, and to doubt our path forward, and break with the past. Dee's passing had that effect on Valerie. As she came to grips with her loss, she realized change happens on its own accord and not always for the better. She saw that at last the changes in her marriage had surpassed her ability to manage them, try though she might. And with that clarity, she and James went on their separate ways. This was major change, not quite expected, not quite desired. He had embraced with hope, freed from the uncertainties and doubts of the past, Valerie flowered, and was finally able to pursue her own interests. Who knew the internet was full of horses? For my own part, I could see the change in Valerie, the joy, the independence, the hope. I decided that now I was finally ready to change, to make up for lost time, and to make a life together. This was to be change desired. So, Labor Day weekend, 2014, under the ruse of a staycation at my house, I set out a daring plan. On her arrival, I plied her with pizza and Netflix. The next morning, I took her to breakfast at the Yellow Vase, feeding her egg white omelets and views of Catalina. We went horseback riding in the canyon trails of Palos Verdes. She vowed she would go riding more often and volunteered to take care of horses. After a nap in the afternoon, we set out for the chart house in Redondo Beach. With the subterfuge of wanting to show her something, I brought her to a little park. Hidden from the main road, overlooking the cliffs. With the dolphins and sailboats in the channel with witnesses. Mumbling something about being heard and me against the world. I asked her if she would consent to be my bride. And in spite of my many failings, she said yes. Now this was a big change. Even though it was desired and probably expected, it still needed to be managed. After all, we were both adults with separate households to combine and other people to consider. Andrew was going to be in junior high, was going to be a junior in high school that year, and it wouldn't do to disrupt him in that. So we held off picking the date until after he graduated, thinking that there's no need to rush because we had the rest of our lives together. So here we are, missing Valerie, questioning our place in the universe, doubting the path forward. Where do we go from here? What do we do? We can make peace with the change we didn't expect, work for the change we desire, and rejoice in the continuity of things that don't change. The Ma Bell rotary dial phone, Valerie's love for all of us. And our love for her.
That's everybody we had planned to speak. If anybody has something they'd like to tell us or share, please come up. Please come up. Right here.
Family from Valerie, Owen, for sharing. So nice. My name is Lisa Rodriguez Clement, and I'm Valerie's second cousin. And Valerie and I shared a love of horses. And I always thought maybe I was born on the wrong part of the family tree because Dee and Valerie loved horses, and my sisters were all like Linda. They were like, ugh. You know, to keep them away, kind of a thing. So I live in Oregon now. I live in Oregon, but I had a horse ranch on the Back Bay in Port Beach for almost 25 years. And Valerie and I would see each other every year at the family reunions, or Rodriguez family reunions at Tristan and Diana Rodriguez's house in Newport. And we rekindle our talk about horses as horse people do. They just talk about horses all the time. And so we started communicating more. And once in a while we'd get on the phone and just talk about our kids and things like that. And I came over to babysit the boys. And that was like a miracle. I don't know where she got her strength. And she had so much going on in her life. And the changes kept coming and coming, and like they do in life. And I called to invite her to come out to the ranch a couple of times, but she was just so busy with the boys and all. And then one day I had something happen, and I called her up and I said, I think you're someone that can really help me. I have a dilemma. I was rescuing horses, and someone had dropped off a massive draft horse at my house. And I didn't know what to do. The thing was so big that I I was a professional horse trainer and I was overwhelmed by it. It was young, it was big, it was spirited. It just, I didn't even have a corral big enough. It looked so huge and everything. And I said, I don't know what to do about this horse. She said, I'll be right over. You know, and I'm like, okay. And so she came over and I said, look at the size of this animal. She goes, I'm going to take total charge of this. And this horse had horrible sores on it. It was sick. It was in terrible shape. And she said, don't you worry about what's its name. I said, I have no idea. I go, what do you want to call it? And she goes, well, I'm going to think on that a little bit. And she showed up and healed this horse. She handled this horse. She even crawled up on its back. Most of my horses were like here, and this horse was up here. And I'm like, Lord, how are you even doing this? And she was fearless. She would go walking down the street with this massive horse. There was a picture of her on the slideshow. And I just couldn't believe that she just took on this huge project. She named the horse Beja. I don't know where she got that name, but it seemed to suit the animal, and the animal just fell in love with her. She fell in love with this mare, and I was just mystified how she did it. She made it happen, and she made it seem like she had done it every day of her life. And I mean, in her heart, that's where she was all the time. And I wish that she was going to still be joining me in my adventures on horseback, and her growing friends back here that also share that passion. And it is something you're born with. God only knows where it comes from, but you're born with it. And Linda sent me out some of the mementos from Dee and Valerie, and I even have Dee's saddle, which I ride in and preserve beautifully on a very high stand, his name on it. I even have Valerie's bridle hanging in my tack room. I work at it every day, and now when I sit and feel those reins as I sit on my horse, it has a very special meaning. So I just wanted to share that, how special she was to me, and my horses.
Anyone else? Okay. In a few minutes, we'll get details from Jeremy on the interment that will take place in a few minutes with an inch. If you haven't noticed, Valerie's personality is fully on display in what we've chosen for her. But she had a favorite blessing in however in her house. It's in the program. May the road rise to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face. May the rains fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may the Lord hold you in the hollow of his hand. Thanks for coming, everyone. Please join us in a few minutes up the hill, and Jeremy will come and give us the details for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Russ. As Russ had so eloquently put, this does conclude the chapel portion of our service. We will have a short recess, and then we'll continue to the final committal portion of our service, which is a bit of a distance up the hill. You will need to get to your vehicles, so we ask that you do that to follow behind the vehicle to process up. So once